There is a ruthless 19th-century blueprint buried deep within the history of modern commerce. A blueprint built not to compete, but to consume. Not to innovate, but to monopolize. And right now, the most dominant retail and technology company on Earth, worth $2.3 trillion, is executing that exact same blueprint, step by calculated step. In 1870, John D. Rockefeller was a 31-year-old accountant from Cleveland, Ohio. He controlled just 4% of America's oil refining capacity. He had no revolutionary invention, no groundbreaking technology, no secret formula for oil. What he had was something far more dangerous, a method. By 1880, just 10 years later, his company, Standard Oil, controlled 90% of all oil refining in the United States, 90% in a decade. Not because the oil was better, not because the service was faster, because Rockefeller had discovered something no businessman before him had ever weaponized at this scale. You don't own the product, you need to own the pipeline. Control the infrastructure that everything else depends on, and you don't compete with your enemies, you collect rent from them. Right now, in 2026, Amazon controls 40% of all U.S. e-commerce. Its cloud division, AWS, runs 33% of the entire global internet. 170 million Americans pay Amazon a monthly fee just for the privilege of using it. The package at your door, the server running your favorite streaming service, the algorithm deciding which products you see and which ones disappear, all Amazon. And the system behind all of it, the predatory pricing, the platform stranglehold, the silent destruction of competitors, it didn't come from a boardroom in Seattle. It came from a refinery in Cleveland, Ohio, in 1870. Rockefeller wrote the blueprint. Bezos just rewrote it in code.
Most people think monopolies are built with force, with political power, with corruption, with brute strength. That's not how Rockefeller did it. Rockefeller built his monopoly with something far more elegant, far more invisible, far more permanent: a system. And that system had 3 layers, 3 principles, 3 locks that once closed, almost no competitor could ever break open. Layer 1. Own the pipeline, not the product. Rockefeller had no interest in drilling oil. The wildcatters could drill. The prospectors could sweat and risk and gamble on oil wells. Rockefeller wanted the refineries, the railroads, the pipelines. Because whoever refines the oil controls the price. Whoever owns the railroad controls who gets to market and who doesn't. Whoever holds the pipeline collects a toll from everyone. The product changes, the pipeline is forever. Layer 2. Secret advantages hidden from everyone. Rockefeller didn't just build infrastructure, he made secret deals that his competitors didn't even know existed. Secret rebates with railroads, secret pricing agreements, secret arrangements that meant Standard Oil shipped cheaper, moved faster, and operated at costs that no competitor could understand, let alone match. His competitors weren't losing to a better company, they were losing to a rigged game, without knowing the game was rigged. Layer 3. Absorb or destroy, no middle ground. When a competitor discovered the disadvantage, Rockefeller gave them one choice: sell to me at my price, or I will price below cost in your market until you have nothing left to sell. Not negotiate, not compromise, absorb or destroy. One road, one outcome. These 3 layers, pipeline control, hidden advantages, absorb or destroy, became the operating manual for Standard Oil. By 1882, Rockefeller formalized everything into one legal structure. He called it a trust. The world had never seen anything like it. And 150 years later, Amazon calls it an ecosystem. Same 3 layers, different vocabulary, identical result.
In the winter of 1872, something happened in Cleveland, Ohio that historians would later call one of the most ruthless corporate maneuvers in American history. Rockefeller called it the Plan. His competitors called it the Cleveland Massacre. Before the massacre, there was a warning. In early 1872, a Cleveland refiner named Robert Hanna received an unusual visit from Standard Oil's representatives. The message was simple: join us, sell to us, or watch what happens next. Hanna refused. Within months, Standard Oil began shipping his same oil on the same railroads at secretly negotiated rates that were nearly half of what Hanna paid. Same railroad, same route, same distance, half the price. Hanna couldn't understand it, couldn't match it, couldn't survive it. His refinery, built over years, profitable, growing, was sold to Rockefeller within the year, at Rockefeller's price, not his. Robert Hanna wasn't incompetent, he wasn't unlucky, he was simply the first man to learn what Cleveland's other 25 refiners were about to discover. At the time, Cleveland had 26 independent oil refineries, competing, growing, profitable. Rockefeller approached them one by one, not with a better product, not with a superior technology, with a piece of paper and a deadline. The paper contained two things: Standard Oil's internal financial records showing exactly how cheaply Rockefeller could operate, and an offer to buy their refinery at Rockefeller's price, not theirs. The message was simple: look at these numbers. You cannot compete with this. Sell to me now at a fair price, or I will begin pricing below cost in Cleveland until you have nothing left to sell, and then I will buy the wreckage for nothing. This wasn't negotiation. This was a demonstration. Now, open Amazon's internal documents. In 2020, the U.S. House Antitrust Subcommittee released a 449-page investigation into Amazon. Inside those pages, a pattern that Rockefeller would have recognized instantly. Amazon operates a program internally called Project Nessie, an algorithm designed to test how high Amazon could raise prices before customers noticed and left. Amazon also systematically monitored third-party seller data on its own platform, which products were selling, at what margins, with what customer loyalty, and then launched competing Amazon private label products, priced lower, promoted higher, placed above the original seller in search results. The original seller, who built the product, the brand, the customer base, slowly disappeared from the platform they depended on. No formal acquisition, no official announcement, just silence where a competitor used to be. One seller, Pirate Trading Company, built a highly successful line of phone accessories on Amazon Marketplace. Amazon studied the data, launched a near-identical product under its own brand, buried Pirate Trading's listing algorithmically. Pirate Trading's revenue collapsed. No courtroom drama, no public scandal, just a quiet elimination. Rockefeller eliminated 22 refineries in 90 days with a piece of paper and a deadline. Amazon eliminates sellers in 90 days with an algorithm and a search ranking. The weapon changed. The massacre didn't.
In 1879, Rockefeller made a decision that had nothing to do with oil. He stopped thinking about oil and started thinking about pipelines. Because Rockefeller had realized something that changed everything. The oil was temporary. The pipeline was permanent. Whoever drills oil today might be irrelevant tomorrow. But whoever owns the infrastructure that oil flows through collects a toll from everyone, today, tomorrow, forever. So Rockefeller built pipelines, thousands of miles of them, stretching across Pennsylvania, Ohio, New York. By 1879, 90% of America's oil moved through pipes that Standard Oil owned. Rockefeller didn't need to own every oil well. He owned the only road to market. Want to sell your oil? You go through him, at his price, on his terms, with no alternative. Now look at what Amazon built in 2006. Not a product, not a store, not an app. Infrastructure. They called it Amazon Web Services, AWS. At the time, most people ignored it. Amazon was a bookstore. What did a bookstore know about technology infrastructure? Bezos knew exactly what he was building. He was building the pipeline. Today, AWS powers approximately 33% of the entire global cloud market, Microsoft Azure 23%, Google Cloud 10%, the rest divided among everyone else. But the numbers alone don't capture the reality. Netflix runs on AWS, Disney Plus runs on AWS, LinkedIn, Reddit, Twitch, Adobe, McDonald's, NASA, the CIA, the US Department of Defense. The Internet, as most people experience it, runs on Amazon's infrastructure. And here is where the Rockefeller parallel becomes almost uncomfortable. Rockefeller's pipeline customers couldn't leave, not because the pipeline was irreplaceable in theory, but because replacing it would cost more than most companies could survive. AWS customers face the same reality. Migrating a major enterprise off AWS takes years of engineering work, hundreds of millions of dollars, months of potential downtime. Companies don't leave AWS, they deepen their dependency on it. Every new service they build on AWS infrastructure is another root growing into Rockefeller's pipeline. And then there is the layer Rockefeller could never have imagined. When a startup builds its product on AWS, Amazon can see the traffic patterns, the growth curves, which features users love, how fast the revenue is climbing. The pipeline doesn't just carry the product, it reads it. Rockefeller knew how much oil flowed through his pipes. Amazon knows what's inside every business that flows through its servers. Rockefeller built his pipeline with steel and labor. Amazon built his pipeline with code and servers. One stretched across Pennsylvania, the other stretches across the entire Internet. Same principle, incomprehensibly larger scale.
In 1892, a small kerosene distributor named George Rice made a decision he would regret for the rest of his life. He decided to compete with Standard Oil. Rice had his own oil wells, his own refinery, his own customers. He was efficient, he was profitable, he was determined. So Rockefeller did something that made no logical sense. Standard Oil began selling kerosene in Rice's markets below cost, deliberately, systematically, not to make money, to make Rice bleed. Every week Rice held on, Standard Oil lost money too, but Rockefeller had something Rice didn't: time. Standard Oil could lose money in one market for years because it was extracting profit from 100 other markets simultaneously. Rice couldn't. Within 2 years, George Rice was finished. His customers were gone. His margins were destroyed. His business collapsed. Rockefeller then raised prices. The temporary loss had purchased a permanent market. Now look at Amazon's first decade. Amazon sold books below cost, deliberately, not occasionally, not as a promotional tactic, systematically. Borders Books, bankrupt in 2011. Barnes & Noble nearly followed. An entire generation of independent bookstores gone. But Bezos wasn't finished with books. He was practicing. In 2010, Amazon identified its next target: Diapers.com, the dominant player in online baby products, a well-run, profitable, fast-growing company. Amazon didn't try to build a better product. Amazon dropped diaper prices by 30% overnight, below cost, deliberately, systematically. Diapers.com began hemorrhaging money immediately. They couldn't match Amazon's prices without destroying their own margins. They couldn't ignore Amazon's prices without losing their customers. Within months, Diapers.com was acquired by Amazon for $545 million. Then Amazon raised prices. The FTC would later describe this as textbook predatory pricing, but by then the competitor was gone. The market was Amazon's. The lesson was learned. George Rice competed with Standard Oil for 2 years before collapsing. Diapers.com competed with Amazon for 8 months. The timelines got shorter because Amazon got better at executing Rockefeller's playbook. Rockefeller once said, "The way to make money is to buy when blood is in the streets." He didn't mention that sometimes it was his job to draw the blood first. Bezos never said anything so direct. He didn't need to. The prices said it for him.
In 1871, Rockefeller walked into the offices of the South Improvement Company and made a deal that would change American business forever. The deal was simple and completely secret. Standard Oil would guarantee the railroads a massive, steady volume of oil shipments. In return, the railroads would give Standard Oil secret rebates, meaning Standard Oil paid less per barrel to ship than any competitor, far less. But the deal had a second layer, a layer so audacious it is almost difficult to believe. Every barrel a competitor shipped, the railroad collected a surcharge and handed a portion of it directly to Rockefeller. Read that again. Every time a competitor used the railroad, they were paying Rockefeller. They didn't know it. They couldn't see it. They were funding their own destruction with every shipment they made. Now open the Amazon Seller Central dashboard. There are 9.7 million sellers on Amazon Marketplace today. Most of them believe they are using Amazon's platform. They are not using Amazon's platform. They are paying for the privilege of building it. Here is what a typical Amazon seller actually pays. Referral fees, 8 to 15% of every sale, automatically deducted. FBA fees, fulfillment by Amazon, storage, picking, packing, shipping, another 20 to 35% depending on product size. Advertising fees, because Amazon's algorithm buries your product unless you pay to be seen, on your own platform, that you are already paying to use. The total effective take rate, economists estimate Amazon collects between 45 and 51 cents of every dollar a marketplace seller earns, nearly half, before the seller pays for the product itself. But the deeper trap isn't the fees, it's what happens when sellers use FBA. When a seller sends inventory to Amazon's fulfillment warehouses, Amazon now knows exactly what sells, in what quantities, at what margins, in which cities. The seller paid to store their inventory and paid Amazon, in data, for the privilege. Rockefeller's railroad customers paid a surcharge that funded Standard Oil. Amazon's FBA sellers pay storage fees that fund Amazon's private label strategy. Different mechanism, identical mathematics. One Amazon seller, who testified before Congress anonymously, described it this way: "We built our entire business on Amazon. We trained Amazon on exactly what works in our category. And then Amazon became our biggest competitor, using our own data against us." Rockefeller's railroad competitors never understood why they kept losing. The surcharge was invisible. Amazon sellers understand their fees perfectly. The trap is just as invisible. Because the fees feel like the cost of doing business. They are. That's exactly the point.
In 1880, Rockefeller had a problem. Standard Oil was enormous, spread across dozens of cities, hundreds of facilities, thousands of employees. How do you control an empire you cannot physically see? Rockefeller's answer was simple and deeply unsettling. He built an intelligence network, and it had a very specific target. George Rice was an independent Ohio oil refiner who had found a way to ship his oil cheaper than Standard Oil. His business was growing. His prices were competitive. He couldn't understand why he kept losing. What Rice didn't know, Standard Oil had placed an informant inside the Erie Railroad. Every time Rice booked a shipment, the informant reported the route, the volume, and the destination directly to Standard Oil headquarters. Standard Oil would then contact Rice's customers before his oil even arrived and offer a lower price. Rice's shipments were arriving to customers who had already switched. He wasn't losing on price, he was losing on information. Rockefeller knew what Rice was doing before Rice's own oil reached its destination. Now look at what Amazon did in 2019. Bloomberg reported that thousands of Amazon employees were listening to Alexa voice recordings from inside customers' homes. Not occasionally, not for technical troubleshooting, systematically, in shifts, in offices across the world. Employees described listening to personal conversations, arguments between couples, and private moments, transcribing them to train Alexa's algorithms. Amazon confirmed it and called it standard practice. And then, in 2023, the FTC fined Amazon $25 million. The reason? Amazon had been secretly retaining voice recordings of children collected through Alexa-enabled devices, despite parents explicitly requesting deletion. The data was never deleted. It was stored, studied, used. A federal regulator called it a surveillance business. Amazon called it an error of judgment. Rockefeller's informant inside the Erie Railroad reported Rice's shipments by telegram. Amazon's informants are inside 500 million homes. They are always on. They are called Alexa. And unlike Rockefeller's spies, you invited this one in yourself. In 1889, Rockefeller introduced loyalty contracts. Simple deal. Buy exclusively from Standard Oil, get a special discount. Buy from a competitor, lose everything immediately. It wasn't force, it was psychology. Once a customer experienced the discount, returning to full price felt like punishment. Rockefeller understood something behavioral economists would spend a century proving. People don't fear losing what they never had. They fear losing what they already enjoy. He proved it with a target that shocked even his closest allies. When his own brother, Frank, bought oil once from an independent refiner, his rebate was canceled immediately. No warning, no negotiation, no family discount. John Rockefeller made no exceptions, not even for blood. Amazon runs the same contract with 170 million people. They just call it Prime. $139 a year. Prime Video, Prime Music, Prime Gaming, Prime Pharmacy, same-day delivery, Whole Foods discounts. Every benefit added to Prime is not generosity, it is a lock. Cancel Prime, and you don't just lose fast shipping, you lose a streaming service, a music library, a pharmacy discount, all at once. In 2022, a leaked internal Amazon study revealed that canceled Prime members returned to Amazon 50% less frequently within 6 months. Amazon's response was not to lower the price, it was to add more locks on the same door. Prime members spend $1,400 per year on Amazon, non-Prime members $600. That gap is the rebate, reimagined. Rockefeller cut off his own brother for buying elsewhere. Amazon makes leaving feel like self-punishment. 150 years apart, identical trap. If this video is showing you a blueprint you never knew existed, subscribe, because every week we pull back the curtain on another empire built to be invisible. The next section will make you question every Amazon purchase you've ever made. In 1900, the United States government finally decided to act against Standard Oil. They filed an antitrust lawsuit. Rockefeller's response was not panic, not negotiation, not reform. It was patience. His lawyers buried the case in procedural complexity, motion after motion, appeal after appeal, delay after delay. The lawsuit, filed in 1900, didn't reach the Supreme Court until 1911, 11 years. While the government fought in courtrooms, Standard Oil continued expanding, continued acquiring, continued tightening its grip. The legal battle wasn't a threat to Rockefeller's empire, it was a distraction for everyone except him. Now, look at Amazon's Washington, D.C. operation. In 2012, Amazon spent $2.5 million in lobbying. By 2023, over $21 million per year. More than 100 registered lobbyists working full-time. When the FTC filed a landmark antitrust lawsuit against Amazon in 2023, Amazon's legal response was immediate, overwhelming, and familiar. Procedural challenges, jurisdictional arguments, motion after motion. Legal analysts estimate the case could take a decade to resolve. A decade during which Amazon will add another 50 million Prime members. And for threats too small for courtrooms, Amazon has a simpler tool, a letter. In 2020, a startup called FakeSpot built a tool that detected fake reviews on Amazon's platform, a consumer protection tool, transparent, useful, completely legal. Amazon sent a cease and desist, then pressured Apple to remove FakeSpot's app from the Apple Store entirely, claiming it scraped Amazon's data. FakeSpot was gone from millions of iPhones overnight. No trial, no judgment, no headlines, just a letter and silence where a competitor used to be. Rockefeller used 11 years of litigation to buy 11 more years of dominance. Amazon doesn't need 11 years. Sometimes one letter is enough.
Every major company makes acquisitions. Google acquires, Apple acquires, Microsoft acquires. This is normal business. But Rockefeller's acquisitions were different, and Amazon's acquisitions are different. The difference is not the size, the difference is the intent. Normal acquisitions add capability. Rockefeller's acquisitions removed alternatives. In 1878, Rockefeller discovered that a pipeline company called Tidewater Pipeline had built an independent route to market, completely bypassing Standard Oil's infrastructure. For the first time, a competitor had found a road Rockefeller didn't own. Rockefeller's response was immediate. He didn't build a better pipeline. He bought every piece of land along Tidewater's planned expansion routes. He acquired the railroad connections Tidewater depended on. He purchased the storage facilities at the end of the pipeline. Tidewater's pipeline existed, but it led nowhere. A road that goes nowhere is not a road. It is a monument to a failed escape. Now look at what Amazon did to Diapers.com. When Diapers.com refused to sell to Amazon in 2010, Amazon didn't just cut prices. Amazon contacted Diapers.com's investors directly, signaling that Amazon would spend whatever it took to destroy the company's market. Investor confidence collapsed, funding dried up. Diapers.com had no road left. They sold to Amazon for $545 million. Within 2 years, Amazon shut Diapers.com down completely. The acquisition wasn't to gain capability, it was to remove an alternative. The same pattern repeated with Ring in 2018. Ring had built the dominant smart doorbell and home security platform, a direct competitor to Amazon's smart home ambitions. Amazon acquired Ring for $1 billion, then used Ring's footage from millions of private homes to train its own surveillance and facial recognition systems. The product consumers bought for security became data infrastructure for Amazon. The acquisition wasn't about doorbells, it was about feeding the intelligence network. Rockefeller bought Tidewater's exit routes, so escape became structurally impossible. Amazon buys its competitors' customer relationships, data, and infrastructure, so the ecosystem becomes structurally inescapable. Every other company acquires to grow. Rockefeller acquired to suffocate. Amazon acquired to absorb. The intention is what makes it different. The result is what makes it terrifying. In 1911, the United States Supreme Court did something unprecedented. They looked at Standard Oil, the most powerful corporation in American history, and said, enough. 34 companies broken up overnight. The world celebrated. The monopoly was dead. Except it wasn't. Standard Oil of New Jersey became ExxonMobil. Standard Oil of New York became Mobil, then merged back into Exxon. Standard Oil of California became Chevron. The 34 pieces didn't disappear. They quietly reconsolidated over the next century. The monopoly didn't die in 1911, it just changed its name. Now look at Amazon in 2023. The FTC filed its landmark antitrust case. The EU passed the Digital Markets Act. Governments across the world declared enough. Amazon's stock dropped slightly. Its lawyers filed their first motions, and Amazon added 20 million new Prime members. History suggests the matrix never truly breaks. It evolves. It renames itself. It finds new infrastructure to own. But history also offers 3 responses. Accept it. Amazon is genuinely useful. The delivery is real. The convenience is real. Live inside it. Just know what it is. Resist it.
buy local, support independent retailers, use alternatives, demand enforcement. Noble, difficult, historically, rarely enough. Own it. Rockefeller didn't just run Standard Oil, he owned it. If the Matrix extracts wealth from 170 million Prime members and concentrates it upward, consider being on the extraction side, not the extracted side. This isn't investment advice, this is pattern recognition. The Rockefeller Matrix extracted wealth for 150 years. It will extract wealth for the next 150. The only question is which side of the pipeline you're standing on.
John D. Rockefeller died in 1937 at age 97, the richest man who ever lived, in real terms. His company was broken up. His name became a history lesson. His blueprint became a template. Standard Oil became ExxonMobil. Rockefeller's pipeline became Amazon's fulfillment network. His railroad rebates became Amazon's seller fee structure. The Cleveland Massacre became a quiet algorithm running 24 hours a day on a server farm in Virginia. The technology changes every decade. The blueprint never does. Because the blueprint isn't a company, it isn't a product, it isn't a person. It's a method. And the method is immortal because it works every single time, in every single industry, against every single person who never learned to see it. Rockefeller wrote the blueprint in 1870. Amazon is executing it in 2026. Now you can see it, and seeing it changes everything. If this blueprint looks familiar, it's because another $3.5 trillion company is running a different version of the exact same system. How Apple uses a 19th-century blueprint to trap you, the Thomas Edison Matrix, is on your screen right now and in the pinned comment below. Watch it, because once you see both blueprints side by side, you'll never look at your phone, your laptop, or that package at your door the same way again.